Hi there everyone, this is the requested video on how to improve your flatbed scanning with 35mm, although this can also be applied to 120 film or 4x5 if you want to do so. First of all, I want to give you a quick overview of what we're going to do in this video. The first step being, I will show you some examples of what you can expect from this method. The second one, the most crucial part of this video, finding the effective resolution of your scanner. Then downloading the Google Nik Collection to use in Photoshop or Lightroom or even GIMP, which can be done with a couple of add-ons, but I will link that down in the description of the video. Then downscaling your scans, using Efex Pro 4 and Output-Sharpening from the Google Nik Collection to edit your scans. And then we'll redo the whole process with black-and-white scans because it can be a bit tricky to use the Nik Collection on black-and-white images. Then I will talk about scanning software like VueScan and how you can improve your scans with software like this. Then I will talk about Filmholders, and if you're unhappy with your current Filmholders, this might really help you. And also different ways of scanning like wet mounting and stuff like that. And I'll put timestamps in the description of the video for you to skip any of these steps if you're already familiar with it. Now let's get straight into this, and here's the first example of what you can expect. This is a cropped 35mm scan of straight off my 9000F Mark II Canon. Obviously the left one being the image straight from the scanner and the right one being edited, color corrected and sharpened. And I didn't do any editing to the dust or scratches, I just left that part out. But as you can see, it's day and night. You get a lot of detail back in the shadow areas, in stuff like hair and skin tones, and especially with eyes and stuff. And then there's this other example I have, which is also cropped. This is also some Portra 400. And I have to say, I don't like how color images turn out on the 9000F Mark II. If you own one, you know exactly what I mean. It's just way too grainy and there's way too much texture to it. So this might seem a bit off to you. But if you own an Epson V600, for example, this will be just fine. As you can see, again, in the hair, you get a lot of detail back. In general, just skin tones turn out really well with this method. Now this might be the most important part of the video, finding the effective resolution of your scanner. Most people would think that they would just have to scan at the highest DPI available to get the most detail and information out of their scans. Which is not true, because at a certain point, at a certain level, your scanner maxes out and you won't be getting any more information than that. So not only will this save you a lot of time in the scanning process itself, because it takes much less time to scan, but also will increase your workflow tremendously. So for you to find your effective resolution, there's this great site called filmscanner.info, which lists a lot of different reviews for scanners of all types. For example, the V600 or the Canoscan 9000F Mark II, which I own. And if your scanner is listed here, you want to go ahead and go down to the resolution section of your scanner review, which would be right here. Now, for me to get my effective resolution of 1700 dpi, which is the highest amount of detail and quality I will be getting out of my negatives, it is necessary for me to scan at 4800 dpi. So as soon as you've got that number, you want to always go ahead and scan at that exact DPI, and then later on downscale your scans to this DPI. And I will show you later on how much of a difference this will make and why it is so important for you to downscale to the effective resolution of your scanner. If your scanner is not listed here, you want to just go ahead and Google, for example, Epson V600 effective resolution. And there's a lot of forums or a lot of reviews that talk about this topic. For example, this scanner also has a review here. And you can see for the Epson V600, you would have to scan at, let's see, 3200 to reach a maximum resolution of 1560 dpi. And it's very important for you to understand that this is the highest resolution you will get out of your scans. Your scanner will max out at that dpi, and this is the resolution you will get. All of the other information you're scanning with 3200 dpi will just be double pixels and unnecessary information that will blow up your image. Now, once you've figured out the DPI to scan at to reach your effective resolution, you want to go ahead and download the Google Nik Collection. So it appears that the site is currently broken, because I've also tried to access it on my phone and it looked just the same, but it doesn't matter. By the time this video is up, it probably will be up and running again. As you can see, you can download this for Mac and Windows, and the great thing is this collection a couple years back cost about $500, I think. Now it's for free, which is great, because this collection really provides great tools for us to improve our scanned images. And once you've downloaded that, just go ahead and install it. The setup is pretty straightforward. And after that, we're going to scan our images. Now, what I forgot to mention is you can also use this collection with GIMP. I will link a couple of websites down in the description on how to do this. I've never tried it myself because I only use Photoshop for my work, but I've heard of a couple of people that this actually works. And you can, for example, enable Photoshop plugins to work in GIMP. So once you've done that, you want to go ahead and load up your film. And I've loaded up on this side Tri-X400, and here I have some Portra 400 to show you what my process is of scanning my negatives. Again, I'm not scanning color negatives very often. I think VueScan is a better option for this, and I'm not very happy with how color negatives turn out on the 9000 F Mark II. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and change the output resolution to the DPI you just found to reach your effective resolution. In my case, I need to scan at 4800 DPI to reach the effective resolution of 1700 DPI. For the image settings, I leave all of these off, especially with Epson scanners. I've read that the dust and scratch removal or the sharpening can really worsen the image, and this will also take a lot longer to scan, so we cannot do all of that in the post-processing. The only thing I'll do with color images is I will do a slight color balance. In this case, I would maybe go for a bit more blue, so I can get the yellow cast out of the image, and also adjust the exposure. In this case, I would go for the typical overexposed Portra 400 look, a bit overexposed, so to say. Then for black and white, and I will use this picture as a reference. What I'll do is I'll just adjust the manual exposure. In this case, I would also maybe brighten up the image a bit to increase the contrast. So like this, and apply. You've also got to make sure you put the output resolution again to your DPI, and then you're ready to scan your film. And as soon as that's done, we're ready to edit our images. These are the two images that I will edit in this video, one image of Portra 400 and one of Tri-X400. Now let's start off with the Portra 400, and the first step is downscaling your image. I will later on show you an example of why this is so important for you to do and why this will improve your image quality tremendously. Now let's go to image size, and change the resolution to your effective resolution, the effective resolution of your scanner. In my case, again, 1700. So what this does necessarily is it will remove all of the unnecessary information and double pixels that are in the image and that are not adding anything to the image. So the next step would be using the Color Efex Pro 4, go to Filter, and once you've installed your Nik Collection, it should appear in the Filter section down here. Go to Nik Collection and click Color Efex Pro. This will load up another window. We're not going to use any of these. These are most of the time really not that useful. The only thing we will use is Pro Contrast. Now, Pro Contrast is really great for adjusting the color cast or removing a color cast. In this case, we have a very yellowish color cast, also the skin tones, and this just does not look like your typical Portra 400. So in this case, mostly it gets it 100% spot on. Sometimes it might even add a little bit of a color cast, so you have to do that manually, but I will show that to you later on. So in this case, if we slide this over to the right side, you can see it removes almost all of the yellow cast that we have in the image. In this case, maybe to have it not this blue, I would not go for 100%, maybe go for 80%. And we can adjust these settings later on as well. Correct contrast, I don't necessarily like this one too much, as it tends to crush blacks quite a bit and also blow out the highlights, as you can see here. And for you to use the histogram down here, as the loop, you just right click anywhere in the image where you want it to be pinned. So like this, for example, and as you can see, it really crushes the black. So in this case, I wouldn't go for it. The dynamic contrast otherwise is great. As you can see, it gets a lot of detail back in the shadow areas and also in the highlights. So it doesn't blow out the highlights. It gets a lot of these clouds back into formation. And in this case, I would maybe go for 60%, because if you go for 100%, you can see there's a lot of texture now in the clouds, which might be due to my scanner not handling color negatives well, but I think this is just way over the top, so I would go for 60%. Then click OK. And as soon as that's done, we can already see a tremendous change in the image. For example, this is before we used the Color Efex Pro, and this is after. Now the next step will be to use the Output Sharpener, which in my opinion is the greatest tool this collection provides. We will again go to Filter, Nik Collection, and use the Sharpener Pro 3 Output Sharpener. Now, as you can see, this is just day and night if you look at the eyes, and there is only two settings I sometimes change, which would be the adaptive sharpening and the output sharpening strength. If this is, for example, too much grain for your liking, you could diminish the output sharpening strength or also the adaptive sharpening. But in this case, I would leave it to the basic values because I want to keep it short and simple. And as you can see, the increase in detail is that much. It's just crazy of how much you get back. And I can show you again that this is the exact same scan that I used in the example image. As you can see, the difference is crazy. So once you're done doing that, we can still do some levels, maybe brighten up the image to get the creaminess in the skin tones and the typical Portra 400 look. Maybe do some more color balance if the skin tone's still too yellow for your taste. Add a bit of blue and a bit of red, maybe a bit of green. And this is just basically all up to you. So I'm just showing you these tools you can use, and that's basically all I'm doing to my color negatives. Again, this is after and this is before. I've gotta say, for the 9000 F Mark II, I'm really liking this image. For the dust removal, I most of the time use the spot healing brush, which works really well if used with content aware. So like this, use it just with in a very small size to remove all of the dust. As soon as that's done, you can export your image and post it on Reddit. Now for black and white, to use the Nik Collection, it can be a bit tricky because it won't let you use the Nik Collection if your image mode is in grayscale. So again, the first step, what we're gonna do is, as soon as we edit or open up our images, go to image size, change the resolution to 1700 in my case, to the effective resolution of your scanner. Once that's done, we want to go ahead and change the image mode to RGB. So now we can use the Nik Collection, and again I also use the Pro contrast in my images because obviously I'm not using the correct color cast because there is no colors in this image, but the correct contrast can be really great for black and white. As you can see, it adds a lot to the shadows, and in general the gray tones of your image will improve by this. And the dynamic contrast is really great. As you can see, the shadow areas are really improved and the highlights are not longer as blown out as before. You can really see a difference now between the shadows and the highlights. So if we go ahead and put this to 60. The next step, again, we will use the output sharpener, and I will leave this at the basic settings again. You can also adjust this to your liking. Click OK, and this is before and this is after, and it's just so great how much detail you get back, specifically in these very small areas like this, with all the dirt on the ground. I mean, if you look at the scan before, you wouldn't think that you would get this much information out of a scanned image. Then again, most of the time just do levels and whatever you like. Maybe brighten up the image because it's a bit too dark up here. And that's basically it for black and white as well. What's very important for black and white and the Nik Collection, at the end of your editing process, as soon as you're done with the image, you want to go back to image mode and change back to grayscale. Because if you look at the image size now, it's 10 to 32 megabytes. And if I go and change that to grayscale and click don't flatten, you will see the size will decrease tremendously. And of course, there's no color in this image, so there's no information given that would increase the quality of your scan. So now I want to show you a quick example of why it is so important for you to change the resolution of your image to the effective resolution of your scanner. Because if you don't do so, your image will be bloated up and will have a lot of double pixels and unnecessary information that will not increase the quality of your scan. So if you go ahead, and I did the process I just showed you with the Pro contrast and the effect and the output sharpening, I did that to both of these images. And this is with the image being at 5000 dpi, and the layer under that is downscaled to 1700. And as you can see, the output sharpener really only works that good if you use your effective resolution. Because if there is too much information in the image that doesn't really add any real information, the output sharpener cannot work that good. So as you can see, you get so much more detail, especially with these flowers, and it's just crazy how much of a difference this makes. And this is the main mistake I've been making. I've been using the Nik Collection for quite some time, but I've never been really that impressed with my scans. And if you look at the difference this makes, it's crazy. And I can also show you this. This is straight from the scanner. If I go ahead and change to RGB mode and use the output sharpener, this is what I get. this, there's not much of a difference because there is so much unnecessary information that doesn't add to the quality of the image. So as you can see, it might change it a bit, but as soon as I downscale it to 1700, this will make much more of a difference. As you can see, now I go to image size, go to 1700. And if I use the output sharpener now, you will see a real increase in quality. Before, after. Look at all the textures. It really makes it really is a big improvement, and I had to figure that out myself because I've been doing this wrong for quite a long time. That's the main reason why I've never been that happy with my scans. Now, if you want to increase your image quality already in the scanning process, you can use software like VueScan or Silverfast. I would definitely recommend VueScan because it's quite affordable, and Silverfast tends to be quite expensive if you use the high-end software. I've got to say this right away, I'm no professional in using VueScan. I will link a couple of reviews and tutorials and websites that will help you get the most out of your scans with VueScan and how to use it and how to calibrate it. In my case, I most of the time only use the basic software that came with my scanner, and also the main purpose of this video was to give everyone a couple of tips and tricks on how to increase image quality without spending additional money on scanning software. Now, for film holders, you have a couple of different options to improve your scan quality. Most basic film holders that come with your scanner are a real pain in the ass, and you've probably noticed this by now. For example, my medium format film holder, I just can't work with it. If it negative tends to curl up or bulge, or it tends to hang through, all of this just basically diminishes the quality of my scan if I'm using the basic film holder. So there's three different options in my opinion that you can use. For the first one being anti-Newton glass. The first thing you need to understand is that every scanner has a different sweet spot of focus. This is slightly above the glass, so you probably just thought, well, I'll take the negative, put it on the scanner itself, put a sheet of anti-Newton glass on it, and I will get my perfect scan, which is not true, because if you put in your film holder, you see that it's slightly above the scanner glass itself, because that's probably where the sweet spot is. So why anti-Newton glass and not regular glass? That's exactly why it's called anti-Newton glass, because if you use normal glass, you get these annoying Newton rings, which I will show you later on. And the second option would be the better scanning film holders. The third option would be the lomography digitalizer for 120 film or 35mm. Now let's start off with the anti-Newton glass. In my opinion, you have a very good option for you to use. The only thing being you need to use 2 sheets of glass to hit the sweet spot of your scanner, which can get quite difficult because most of the times you only get anti-Newton glass on eBay. I've looked at a couple of different sources. I haven't been able to find one, at least for Europe, because I'm located in Austria. So if you would want to scan with anti-Newton glass, you would have to put 1 sheet on the scanner bed itself, put the negative on top of it, and put another layer of anti-Newton glass on it, so it keeps it perfectly flat. The thing with anti-Newton glass is, the first problem is, as soon as there's 2 more sheets of glass in your scanning process involved, you're also gonna have a lot more dust in it, and you'll have to keep those clean. And the other thing is, scanning with glass, you often, as you can see here, and I will put these also, the website to this in the description, a side-by-side comparison, this can add a lot more texture to your image than to your liking. So there might be better options than this. As you can see, and if you, for example, have a 9000F Mark II, and you're already unhappy with how the texture turns out in the sky with color negatives, you might want to stay away from anti-Newton glass. The other option would be the better scanning film holders, which are perfectly designed for your film scanner. So they fit in and have variable height settings for you to change to hit that sweet spot. And these cost around 70 or 80 bucks for some scanners like the V600, I think. This is only an insert, so it's even cheaper, and it really keeps your negative flat. And if you have film like Rolei or Fomapan that tends to curl up a lot, this might be a really good option. But again, take this into consideration that it might add a lot of additional grain and texture to your image. Another thing you could do is you could use the lomography digitalizer for 35mm or for 120 film. So I've just ordered this and I've heard a lot of great reviews on it. And basically how this works is you put your negative on this. This is a plate that's magnetic. So these are magnetic, and you put the negative on this negative strip on this. Then you put this mask on it, close the lid, pull out this piece you've just inserted, and the metal part will automatically no longer be on the film holder because it's magnetic. So this keeps your negative perfectly flat. And I've ordered the holder for 120 film. As you can see, it really should work great. This article is in German, which is too bad, but I'll tell you the basic things you need to know, because this focuses on the height system of your film holder and where the sweet spot of your scanner is. So as you can see here, he used some tape and put one layer of tape on it and did a scan and put another layer on it to see where he's hitting the sweet spot. And as you can see, I think this is where he's getting the most out of his image on the second one. And then there is, again, the method I addressed in the beginning, putting 2 layers of glass in between. You could also use tape for this. But again, as I've said, adding additional glass will result in a more unsharp image. Another thing you could do is wet scanning, which is also done here. You take a certain fluid and put it between 2 pieces of glass for you to, or even on the scanner bed itself, as you can see here, to keep the negative as flat as possible. I've never done this, and I've also heard this isn't as, it probably will increase your image quality a bit, but it's probably not worth the effort, and also having to dry your film again after doing that, and the fluids are also quite expensive, I think. So yeah, that's basically it for this video. If you need any more information on maybe how to get Photoshop or VueScan set up, you can always ask me questions, and if you need any additional help, just write me on Reddit or Facebook. And that's basically it for this video. Thank you very much for watching.